Mr. Mason, it's an honor to be with you today, sir. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Rocco.
Growing up in New York City, how did that
Sure.
environment shape you as an artist?
Very hugely. I always say if I wasn't born here, which was all by design, I probably would have spent my whole life trying to get here. So saved me a lot of time being born here. I'm first generation from Trinidad and Tobago. My parents came here looking for, the American dream, which was found, which was beautiful. And my father was a key figure in my career for sure. Because I don't think you can separate being an actor and being a human being and a person. It's the same thing, you know. So whatever you learn as a human being, you're going to apply to that. So he taught me a lot of things like discipline, commitment, and so forth, and ambition. He himself was an amazing artist, painter, musician, and I grew up surrounded by that. Him always working on it, working. It was amazing. He wasn't looking for any kind of payday or anything like that. He just simply loved to create. So that was the atmosphere in my home, which was beautiful. And so we moved to the Upper West Side, New York, which was pretty affluent back then, which was very nice. And he also worked on Wall Street. He was an intellectual. He was a very smart man. So he would work all day at Wall Street and come home and just paint into the wee hours of the morning. I mean, that was his life. It was beautiful. So I saw how important it was to him. So that formed a lot of values in my mind that what I wanted to do would require all my attention. So I'm a pretty diehard guy, at least I was. Meaning art was first, always, over everything. So I don't play sports. I never did. So it was always art. And also being strong, independent on your own was very important. I learned that very young because we would go back between Trinidad and the States. In the States, between me and you, I have a outie belly button, which was something I was teased about here in the States because everybody had an innie. So when I'd go back to Trinidad, everybody had outie belly buttons. They were much bigger than mine. So they would tease me because mine was so small. And that's when I realized, you know what, you can't win. You can't please everybody. That's something you got to always remember on your journey as being an artist. So I learned that the hard way, and that, you have to stick to your guns. It's okay. I also grew up in the Bronx, and which was interesting because for me to pursue what I wanted to pursue, I'd have to travel an hour into the city. I don't know if you're familiar with New York. So, in the Bronx, people didn't get me. I was kind of an oddball. I was a cinephile very early, just like you. So movies were my best friend. I felt a little on the outside of American culture. And I was what they called a Broadway baby. I mean, as far as the environment, I went to an acting group for kids called the First All Children's Theater, which was located right across from Lincoln Center, which is basically the hub of culture in New York. So it was amazing, to be around these kids. We all wanted the same thing. In the beginning, I wanted to be Ben Veree. I'm not sure if you know who that is. He was the beginning of my goal was to be a triple threat, is what we used to call it: acting, dance, singing. So those were my three disciplines that I was working on. We're talking like 10 to 13. Do shows every day, 4 on the weekend, plus, including the matinee. And when I had time, I'd go do other classes to bring up, because I was trying to get this triple threat thing going. I had a good voice, but not a great singer. Luckily, it was a chorus, so I could just blend in. But as far as dance, I thought I needed more work. So I would take dance classes on the weekend. I'd leave my house in the Bronx, and everybody's playing basketball. They're like, "Where you going, Larry?" I said, "I'm going to tap class." They'd all laugh. I just kept walking, kept it moving. That's what I mean. You got to know what you want and just not be a follower, basically, which my father taught me. So I kept doing it. They would tease me, oh, you going to ballet class or whatever, But I tell you something, as soon as I started doing hip hop videos, which was my first thing, they all wanted to hang out with me. They all wanted an autograph. That's how quickly people change. So you got to believe in yourself. They will come when it's time. So that was another early lesson, which was important.
If you build it, they will follow, correct?
Oh, yeah. The same kids who used to tease me were like following me, wanted to ask me all the questions, were so impressed. So you have to believe in yourself and love what you do, which I did do. So
when you were growing up, when you were coming up, sir, and people were messing with you, did that stem from jealousy from them to you?
I wasn't doing what everybody else was doing. For example, I lived across the street from a basketball court. So, that was everybody's goal, was to be a basketball star. Mine wasn't. So that kind of put me on the outside a bit. They were just curious. They didn't understand. They didn't understand why I was doing this and not doing what they were doing, because I knew what I wanted, and I wanted to get the skills, which is something I worry about the youth of today. It's all about skills, man. This world, you better have a skill. And, I think Denzel put it the best. He said, in the beginning, you learn, then you earn, and then return. You get the return. That's where I'm at now. I just turned 56. I'm very happy about it. Glad I made it. So now I'm getting the return. I just came back from a great Comic-Con in Atlanta. It's just so amazing. As a film person, TV person, in theater, of course, after you do the show, you get a nice round of applause. You get to take a bow. That's how I feel these conventions are, because I've never gotten the return from these films. But in the convention, you get it. You see, how you touched people, and it's great. It's like a big applause, a big taking a bow. That's how I look at it. So it's great, when you come out to these conventions. I mean, you forget about these things. These things are like decades old, so to see that fresh in their minds and the appreciation is very rewarding. So I'm glad I'm doing these conventions now and more interviews. I'm trying to share more. I'm a Cancer, so I'm pretty introvert by nature. So I feel like, I want to give and talk and share my story. That's why I'm here with you today, because it's important, because without these sparks and these connections, I don't care what actor you talk to, how big they are. Every actor was a fan at some point. Otherwise they wouldn't have joined. So, yes, I mean, you get used to it. I don't get starstruck, but I did on this last convention for the first time, and it was so rewarding. Felt great, because when you're working with say big stars, they don't want you fanning out. You're working together. You're doing your job together. So I was in the green room at the convention. Up walks Lou Ferrigno, the original Incredible Hulk. So I was 10 years old again, man. I was just like, hello, Miss, I felt like a little kid. I was like, hello, Mr. Ferrigno. He's like, just call me Lou. I was like, wow, okay. So that's, when you forget, you meet somebody like that, they remind you where the spark was, the original spark. So I just was like 10 years old again. You imagine me looking up at this guy. He's like, why is this guy acting so funny? He's in the green room, so he's obviously a guest. I totally fanned out on him, so it was pretty funny. And it reminds you, you forget how special it is. We take it for granted to put on costumes. You see all the guests, all the people at the convention wearing costumes. It becomes ordinary, unfortunately. So the older you get, the more experienced you get, the more you want to get back to that spark, that initial joy, what got you on the train in the first place. It gets very diluted as you move along. So you always want to hold on to that. I think Biggie Small said, treat every gig like it's your first gig. And I've always tried to keep to that. Like it's your first gig. I think that freshness keeps you fresh, keeps you strong and inspired. A lot of times people artists have trouble with inspiration, I think it's because they lost touch with whatever it was that got them on the road in the first place. Speaking of what got me on the road, again, my father was an incredible person, and I think he gave me a great foundation. And he was also very trapped between two worlds. Like I said, he worked on Wall Street. He's also an artist. So that struggle for him made me feel the importance, and right then I decided, when I was 10 years old, I decided I'm never going to wear a tie and work in an office, which is a bold move for a 10-year-old to make. And I stuck to it. Proud to say that was my success. That's how I view success. Success changes for people, but I always had I asked for reasonable things. And my father taught me that anything that's easy is not worthwhile. So I think a lot of people come into this game thinking it's easy. It ain't easy. It's very hard. So if you come with it under the assumption that, nothing is given, nothing is owed to you. The world doesn't owe you anything. You owe the world something. What are you going to contribute? So I would say to young people, get those skills, whatever it is you want to do, and be the best you can. My father didn't care what I did eventually. He just said, as long as you're the best at it. He was a musician himself. I mean, he tried to teach me, and I wish I'd taken those classes because I love music. I can't play a thing. I've been in like 5 bands. I've faked my way through 5 bands. So we both, that was how we bonded, was with movies. He was a very quiet guy, just like me. It would just be dad and son time. We would go down to Times Square and watch, movies. He would always take me to rated R movies. I never knew why. And I asked my mom, and she said, well, it's the only way he could go if he took you. So I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. So yeah, that was our thing. And like I said, I lived on Riverside Drive in Manhattan. And we were walking home one day. He picked me up from school. And as you walk down Riverside, it's all one side is residential, the other side is the park. And I saw all these trucks, like 10 huge trucks, and all these people running around with walkie-talkies. Real business, I was like, what's going on, Dad? He said, it looks like they're shooting a movie. And I said, wow. I was like, can we go watch? And to his credit, he went and asked one of the PAs where they were shooting down in the park. And he took me. It was a night shoot. He took me to a night shoot. So we walked across the street, went down to the boat basin in Riverside Drive to find out to see what was going on. And people have asked me, was there a particular actor that, inspired me to become an actor? And to tell you the truth, it wasn't an actor. It was the crew. I just wanted to be a part of that. It was like a little army. Just to see the group of people trying to do something mysterious in the middle of the night was crazy to me. I was just impressed with all the coordination, trying to figure out who's running the show, who's the boss. And then, of course, the actors came out. And that little film happened to be a movie called The Warriors. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was The Warriors. Of course you are. You're a cinephile. So I have the poster up over here. I'll pan it over this so you can see it. So that's like my, I don't know what you would call it. That was my anchor right there. It's like, okay, this can be a real job. This doesn't have to be fantasy. This is a real thing. You know what I'm saying? As a child, I was like, okay, I get it. It was very exciting. I mean, to watch the controlled chaos. They had the extras running. It was the actual Can You Dig It scene when Cyrus gets shot. So it was crazy. I mean, that was it. From then on, I was like, that's what I'm doing. That's what I am doing, So I went headlong into that and joined this little acting group, like I said, and learned about the stage and as I said, I wanted to be Ben Vereen. I wanted to be the triple threat, basically, until I saw a little movie called Fame, which was about the High School of Performing Arts in New York, specialized school. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, that's me. That's me. They showed kids from all over the city auditioning to get in and learning about acting and stuff like that. So I was very inspired. At that point, I was in Catholic school. because my parents had pulled me out of this acting group I was in because my grades were tanking. So I was going to Catholic school, which was the opposite. It was horrible. I had to wear a uniform, had nuns and whatnot. And I was very depressed because I hadn't been performing. And it was time to enroll for high school. So I said, that's where I want to go. My parents have always been supportive. But again, support, and you want the best for your kids. Sometimes the best is more than you can see. So they weren't working actors in Trinidad as far as that. So they couldn't see the reality. They just saw the dream. They saw I wanted it. So they were a little worried about me going to performing arts. They wanted me to go to a Catholic high school, which would have been horrible. So I consequently, obviously didn't like the nuns very much. But in the end, the nuns are the ones that helped me out. They had a little meeting with my folks. We did a little play in the Catholic school, and I came in to audition for that. And like I said, I hadn't performed in years, so I went crazy. I sang "Hey Jude" by the Beatles. I'm doing half splits. They're like, wow, So the nuns were like, you have to send him there to performing arts. They're like, he has a gift. Do not send him to Catholic high school. He had, so they were on my side. Bless them. Thank you. So they convinced my parents that it was okay to do it. So I went for the audition at Performing Arts, and I went there, and there were two schools. One was in Midtown. That's the original school. And so I went for that audition, and of course got in. And it was just like in the movie. The first 10 minutes of the movie is the kids getting that phone call or letter. And I was so excited. And it was everything I dreamed it would be. It was just like the movie. It was awesome. Just kids from all over the city, which was beautiful because in New York, I think in most cities, maybe you have your zoned high school, which is where you live. So, in fact, we were mixed with kids from all over the city, which was very good. And, studied very hard and rose very quickly to the point where I got before I graduated, I got the Student Alumni Award, which was a big deal. It's kind of like Best Actor kind of thing, which I thought was a big deal at the time, of course. And did my first interview with Jane Pauley for that. And, I've always been on a track, always. I think that's what saved me, kept me out of trouble. I've always been focused and always on a track, basically. You could say I was groomed for it. So there was never a doubt, really. So,
Mr. Mason, when you're
yes.
when you're coming up into the game and you're learning and you're earning your stripes and putting the work in,
okay.
As a young man as myself, I'm discovering this, learning something new every day. But how do you, excuse my language, but how do you get through the bullshit of dealing with negativity and people trying to tear you down along the way?
Well, no one ever tried to tear me down. Maybe I was fortunate. I had a lot of support, a lot of belief. My classmates, people saw things in me that I didn't see in myself, which was important, I think, which I think brought me out of my shell. And I think the answer to that would be craft. If it's what you focus on, Someone recently said they wanted to be an actor to me. They're off to a late start. And I said, it depends. What kind of actor do you want to be? There are all kinds of actors. There's some actors that just immediately get a commercial and they get locked into a commercial contract for 9 years. And that's all they do is that commercial. There's lots of kinds of actors. So do you mean you want to be a star? It's a big difference. Very big difference. So you have to be specific. Specific is important to know exactly what you want. So back to me, I didn't want to be a star. Obviously, that would have been nice. But what I really wanted was to own my own theater. I was very into theater of the absurd and so forth. Very small theater. And I want to live above the theater with my leading lady. Of course, get married and live right above the theater. That's all I wanted. That's it. And I was doing very well with that. until I moved to Hollywood. So then I saw all these things, that you could have, so it changed my course immediately because theater is pretty grueling, to be honest. It's hard to do theater and then do film and then go back, although there are many actors have. But for me, I couldn't go back, to doing it every night for a fraction of the pay. So, film was it for me, TV was it for me. So, yeah, I went through the ranks. There wasn't anyone trying to tear me down. No, there's nothing but support. And like I said, I had a very strong community. I think it would have been different if I was just alone in another town. That's why I said being born in New York was a huge jump start. So all my friends, we all root for each other still to this day. I mean, like one of my good friends, Seth Gilliam, he was on Walking Dead. I just saw him at the convention. I mean, we've known each other for 30, 40 years, He's not my competition, even though we're in the same age, same color. But it's like, did you get that? Did you hear about which was the big difference between New York and LA? Because in New York, it's more family because you all grew up together, basically. In LA, I found it's much more adversarial and competitive because they're coming from all over the world. In New York, you're in it together. For example, recently, Malcolm Jamal Warner just passed. That was one of my first auditions, was for The Cosby Show, was for that role of Theo. So my friend Carl Payne, who I was in First Ultras in the Theater with, and also high school, he's the one who took me to that. Used to do bum rush auditions back in the day, before you had an agent. He said, I'm going to this thing for Cosby. And I said, what? What is it? He said, it's The Cosby Show. So I went with him. That was my first audition and I did it. So if that had been LA, he probably not would have told me. So in LA, everybody keeps it hidden, because everybody's trying to get theirs. But not in New York, or more like a family.
That's what was always respectable about New York was it's
different.
We're together.
Yeah, that's the nature of New York. You could be on a train next to a millionaire. You have no idea. You don't know who anybody is. Where in LA, there's so much more status. In New York, you have no idea. You treat everybody respect because you have no idea who that person is or what they're gonna be in 10 years. You don't know. So it's much more of a community. At least for me, it was. I mean, I went to school with Jennifer Aniston as well. So again, we're a community. It's like family, Anything happens good for her, I'm excited. And it's just more proof that it's possible. So if you get me. So it's not the same vibe as it was in LA. So, and of course you look for transplants, you look for community. I mean, you do feel alone a lot as an actor, but you're not alone. You just have to reach out. You just have to share. You get together, you chop it up, and you share stories and you crack it up. So, there's a lot of support. You need it, And after a while,
I'm so glad you said that about New York, sir.
No, I sensed a bit of like when you mentioned the pressure and the trials and tribulations, which exist, but you can look at it as opportunities. That's how I look at it, Just the opportunity was enough. Just to get in the room was enough. So when your goals are realistic, that's the joy, that's the appreciation. So you didn't get it, but at least you got in the room because there were thousands who didn't even get anywhere close. So that's the joy. You find the joy in that. A lot of people talk about rejection, but you know what? You can't get everything. It's just like in the real life. Why should it be any different? Why should you get everything you want? That's not how life works. You know what I mean? And you're not always in control, Life is in control. You can control yourself. That's the most you can do is control yourself. Discipline, the 3 Ps: present, prompt, and prepared. No matter what it is, doesn't matter what level. Because I think one of your questions was the difference working on the A-list. There's no difference. It's the same skill set. present, prompt, and prepared. I am always present, prompt, and prepared. Always. Doesn't matter if it's an interview with you or with Charlie Rose. It doesn't matter. It's the same skill set. And these are habits. You make good habits. You don't have to build them later, and they're already built in. So that's
so
what
in
I
other
would
words, the fundamentals are still the same everywhere you go.
Yes, they have to be. They don't change. You don't do a better job if it's a bigger A-list. You might, because you're not alone. It's a team effort, you know. It's a group. It's not all about you. It's about the person who wrote it, to be honest. You know, I get a lot of credit, you know, for things that I didn't do. So, you know, people repeat lines back to me. I was like, you know, I didn't write that. You know what I mean? You know, that this wicked costume, I did not design this, you know. I'm just an avatar. That's what I put in my bio. I'm a human avatar, you know what I mean? And proud to be a part of the mix, you know. I just wanted to be in the club. I just wanted to be a part of it. I have a friend recently who asked, she's not in the business. She said, you know, all those credits, all those names at the end of a movie? I'm like, yeah. She's like, are those real? And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Each name is a real person. That's how many people it takes to make a movie. Yes. Each person is real. You know, so that just gives me a clue as to how clueless the public is, you know, but it's fine. It's not that everyone needs to know, you know. I'm kind of like with the magicians. I feel like, you know, the public doesn't need to know this, you know, that's a part of the magic, you know. So I'm just imparting this to people who want to be involved. That's why I asked, what do you want? What do your viewers want? You know, if it's just salacious stuff, if it's real information, yeah. I also coach because I believe in giving back, because so much was given to me. I coach young actors, and I'm also a script doctor on the side because I think it's more constructive than just being a critic. You know, I could have been a film critic if I wanted to, but I respect it too much because I know, you know, it's hard. You know, it's easy to just sit there and pick at a movie, say what you don't like. You know what? Try making one, so you'll have a little more respect for these people that are trying. So I found being a script doctor is the same. I can address my same issues or problems with a particular project, or, you know, the beginning of a project. As a script doctor, I can tell you, you know, oh, there's not enough motivation here. You know, we can tweak this. You know, it's very helpful, I think. It's helpful to, and also for young students. Yeah, the biggest thing I say to them is skills. Get your skill set down. Everything is transferable. You can use it for, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's theater or film. Yeah, there are different disciplines. There are things to learn. The best teacher is working. You know, when I went to school for 8 years, okay? High school and performing arts, and SUNY Purchase, which they call the Purchase Mafia. Again, more groups. I came up with Parker Posey and Rena Wilson and a lot of working actors now. And we all went to the same training, you know. So it's like you use what you're given, what you have, and never take for granted what makes you you, because then ultimately that's what's going to get you through. For example, I always felt like when I was younger, I always felt a bit on the outside because I wasn't raised primarily in this country. I felt out of touch with the African American experience. And again, I didn't even know my parents had an accent till I was like much older. So that's, you know, and when I learned Eastern Standard speeches with the teaching and acting schools. And so I was like, this doesn't sound like, you know, hood, you know. So I was never getting those roles, which felt like a weakness at that point. And then I was like, you know what? I can do these more than just bad guys, because I can also handle the legal speak for lawyers roles and so forth. So that became, I turned a weakness into a plus, is what I'm saying. You work with what you got. So, you know, I think that's important to figure out. You know, another example of that is I remember Jen Aniston in high school, story she always tells of we had to do scenes all the time. She came off the stage and she said, "Why is everybody laughing?" And my favorite teacher, Mr. Anthony Apeson, he taught both of us. He said to her, said, "You're funny." Because maybe in her mind she was aiming for a leading lady, which she easily could have been. But he's like, "You're funny." She's like, "What do you mean I'm funny?" He's like, "You are funny. You're a funny person. You like, go with it." And she did, bless her. And look where she is now. So that's what I mean. You got to work with, don't typecast yourself, I think, is what a lot of people do. They typecast yourself. Don't do that. Don't worry. Hollywood will do that for you. They will cast you. And from that point, first you got to get in. Then you make your moves. That was always my kind of blueprint. Was like, say, Humphrey Bogart. I'm no pretty boy. And so Humphrey Bogart started off as a bad guy, and somehow made his way to leading man. So that was kind of my blueprint. I was like, I'm gonna get in where I can get in, playing all these bad guys. And the problem with that is you get killed a lot. So I was like, this bad guy thing ain't working out. I'm never gonna be in a sequel. So you get killed. I got killed a lot in the beginning. But I was just happy to be there. Speaking of the beginning, True Romance was one of my first big films, which was quite a shock to the system. So went to Hollywood for the first time and was amazing. I didn't even drive yet, so they had to pick me up and so forth. And being a New Yorker, so I didn't drive.
Just walk everywhere, right?
Yeah, just take the train. Yeah. So I got to set and. What an amazing gift. Oh, so beautiful. I get choked up when I think about it. It was just so many dreams all came together. And walking on the set, I had a huge crush on Patricia Arquette, of course. And there she comes walking at me wearing her Alabama costume, like, all the things, I dreamed of saying to her, I did not say. I was like, "Hi," I went to my trailer. I get a knock at the trailer. I open the door. Who is it? It's Gary Oldman, who I also worshipped from. He did a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Dead with Tim Roth. I worshipped him, and I mean, he was there in costume. He's like, "Hi, I'm Gary. I just wanted to come by and say hi." Never happened again since. That was the first time a lead ever came and introduced themselves to me. So. I was like, "Hi, Mr. Oldman," So he's like, "I'm having a bit of trouble with this American urban accent." I was like, "I'm probably the wrong guy to ask." I was like, "I've been having trouble with that." So he actually asked me for help. So we ran the scene a couple of times on the steps of my trailer, and it meant everything to me. I mean, I've always been blessed with working with very generous people. I've heard stories, but never experienced them. They've always been complete sweethearts. So cut to, we're on set. As we're walking to set, we pass, they're shooting the scene with Dennis Hopper and Christopher Walken. I don't know how familiar you are with the movie. So, and I see Val Kilmer dressed as Elvis. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this movie? I didn't get it. So, so they're shooting that. I'm watching off camera. I'm like, this is all I wanted was to be on set and to be allowed to be there. Not somebody just shoot me off like when I was a kid. So, I'm watching this scene. So I get on set. It's me, Sam Jackson, Gary Oldman. So I have to lead this scene basically. So I get on. Like I said, I've done theater since I was 10. So they hook the mic up. And so we go and of course, Tony Scott, God rest his soul, was incredibly intimidating, wearing pink shorts, smoking a cigar, So, I was pretty much a nervous wreck. It was my first big deal. And so we go for a take. And like I said, I'm trained, so we go for a take and I blow the sound guy out. And so Sam is like, he sees me struggling. Sam said, "Come here, blood. Let me talk to you to the side." He pulls me off to the side very quietly. And he says, "You're a theater dude, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, how do you know?" He's like, "Because you're projecting. You don't have to project. The mic's right there. You don't have to project." That's how green I was, okay? So I was like, "Oh, okay." So He's like, everything here is for you. That's how he painted it. He's like, you got a sound, man. You don't have to project. The camera's right here. It's getting everything in your eyes. You don't have to, because when you're in theater, you have to hit the back of the theater, you know? So he toned me down. He basically gave me a crash course in movie acting right there. So generous, man. I mean, thankfully, there was some technical issue. We had to take a break. And so Tony wasn't around. So he gave me a quick crash course. And so we went back at it and I did my thing, you know. So that was that's when I got broken in. I got broken in by the best. So it was pretty awesome. And me and Gary got very friendly. And he was like, you know, you look a lot like Jean-Michel Basquiat. I had no idea who it was, which I did. I looked identical to this guy. He said, I'm about to do a project. Would you be interested in playing him? I said, yeah, of course, you know. He's like, all right. And we exchanged numbers. So I figured I'd never see him again, which is usually how it happens. So I got back home. I was still living at home. I got back to the Bronx. I got back home. My dad's like, you got a phone call. It's somebody named Gary. I said, I don't know any Gary. He's like, he's got a British accent. It's like, get out of here. So it's Gary. He's like, yeah, I set up a meeting for you to meet Julian Schnabel. Can you get down to Soho? I was like, yeah, it'll take me an hour because I live in Bronx. So, you know, I told my dad. My dad was like, get your ass down there, you know. So I went down and met Julian Schnabel and confessed that I had no idea who Jean-Michel Basquiat was. But he said, you know, you look a lot like. He kept looking at me. So it wasn't a formal audition. We just chatted. But the point is that Gary followed through, which I never expected to see him again. I mean, you meet people along the way, man. I mean, who set you in the right direction. And I did not get it. And again, it went to the right person. Jeffrey Wright killed that role. I mean, he smashed it. It was beautiful. So yeah, there's no like feeling of, you know, animosity. I mean, he did an amazing job. He's already well known, had won many awards by then, I think, for Angels in America. So he deserved it. And I was happy to see him do such a great job. Okay, oh, I get it now. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my start. Pretty lovely to be with such pros. And after this shoot, Sam was like, "Where's your car?" I was like, "I don't drive." He's like, "I'll drive you. I'll drive you home." So he drove me home, and it was amazing. We're driving in his cool car down Sunset Boulevard. He basically gave me a quick tutorial. His one rule was never say no, always say yes. Do it. That's how he got the credit underneath Gene Hackman as most working actor, you know, because he always said yes. And unfortunately, I did not keep to that rule. I tried to for as long as I could, which is why I've done so much. Because after a while, I wanted different things. I wanted a specific thing, which I saw, which I wanted to do. And it's great words of wisdom. And always be working, which is what I've kept up for 40 years, which is pretty amazing. So now it's the return. Again, as we were saying, you know, I did the earning, you know, learn, earn, return. I really believe in that.
Do you think Sam and Mr. Oldman sensed that you were being you? Do you think that's really why they wanted to help you? Because they seen that you were being you.
What do you mean by being me?
Like being on set, like how you said you were projecting and you're on stage. It's a film. They see that you're really coming. They see who you're coming to be, really who you are. So do you think that's why they gave you the extended time of day at that point in your career?
They saw me struggling. I think, to be honest, they saw me struggling, having a hard time, not knowing what I'm doing. Even though I did train for 8 years, but I never trained for film. So it's generosity. You know, I heard a story recently, and it reminded me of my story. It was Laurence Fishburne, who also was in Apocalypse Now when he was 18, pretty much, you know, and he was struggling too, you know. And his story goes, you know, Martin Sheen he came to the side. He said to Laurence, young Laurence, said, "You know, you're really good." And Fishburne said, "Nobody had ever told me that." You know, think of that. Nobody had ever said that to him. That was all it took for him to give him. You know, it was the same feeling, treating me as a peer. You know, no big actor I've ever worked with has ever looked down on me, even if I wasn't doing great. If they saw I wasn't doing great, they helped. That's the difference between a big dog. You know, when you meet mid-range people, they have an attitude, but big dogs know how hard it is. No, they see you're at the beginning of your journey, and I do the same thing. You know, I would do the same thing now, and I think that's why I teach, because it's hard in the beginning, because everything can't be taught. A lot of things you learn through experience. You know, so you got to crash and burn sometimes. The best thing about falling on your ass is that you have to get up and do it again, you know? So you have to have that spirit, and it's important to give back. So I think they saw a young man who really wanted it, took it seriously, and needed a little help. So, and they gave. Well, Gary, I mean, didn't know who I was. So he's just that kind of guy. He was just very open. Like I said, it's a community. We're all making something together. It doesn't make any sense to be adversarial at that point. During casting, yes. And my note about casting, which took me a while to figure out, a lot of actors have anxiety about casting, about getting cast, because it feels like they're gatekeepers. You can't, you know, in the beginning, it feels like a huge wall that you cannot get on the other side of. But the truth is, a casting director's job is to find the talent. Nobody wants you to be good more than a casting director. Because if you're good, if you're what they're looking for, you know what their job is done for the day. They don't have to look another 30 guys. So they found you, you know. It's about finding each other. So I think young actors have to look at it that way. They're more than happy that you are the right person. They don't want you to fail. They want you to be great. They want you to make their life easier so they don't have to keep looking. So that's the thing. And a lot of time it's what you bring naturally. That's why I say, you know, try and guard whatever it is that makes you you, you know. Don't try so hard to fit what you think. I think that's the problem with Hollywood sometimes. You see other stars and you think you have to be this, you have to be that. That's not what makes you special. Usually what makes you special is you can't see it. You know what I mean? So, for example, I did not audition for Hackers. There was no read. I just met with the director. And afterwards, I did ask him, I said, you didn't have me read. Why did you pick me? He said, because you're smart. He's like, you can't act. That's something you can't act. Either you are or you're not. And I was like, huh, all right.
So true.
I'll take that. Yeah. So that's a lesson learned. Okay. And same for The Crow. I mean, I was fierce. I was just fierce young man. I just was. And I was raised on rock, which was always a weird thing for me because my dad was a rock musician. I think you had a question about music. So all my friends, their parents were into classical and jazz, like most Gen X kids' parents. But my dad was into rock. So for me to rebel, I had to be into hip hop. That was the only rebelling. You know, most kids rebel with rock. I couldn't rebel with rock because I grew up on, you know, Kiss and the Clash. My dad took me to see the Clash at the Bond Theater. I mean, so that's different when you're an African American. So when The Crow came around, guess what? That was an asset. It wasn't this thing that I always felt on the outside of. It was perfect because again, the Warriors was my first jump off and inspiration. You know, that's why I fought in The Crow. I said, I really want the vest. You know, I was cosplaying the Warriors basically in The Crow. So, and David Patrick Kelly, who's in the Warriors, he was also the leader of the gang in The Crow, which was perfect. You know, I feel very blessed because everything lines up for me. So, yeah, I got to do that and worked with him on that, and it was just perfect. And again, you never know. You know, you're only in control of yourself. You don't know what life's going to throw at you, and I've been very fortunate in that regard. I think the original role of Tintin was for Lenny Kravitz actually, and because he was so busy touring, his schedule conflicted, and that's how I got it. It wasn't because I went to acting school for 8 years. It's because we were about the same height and had the same rock vibe, which they couldn't find. So, you know, it's these things you don't ask why when you're on the good side of it. So don't ask why when it doesn't work out for you. That's what I would say. Just keep it moving.
Don't try to
Yeah.
move something that's moving. Just let it.
What's supposed to happen is going to happen. Don't worry. And it never happens in the way you think it does. That's something I've learned. It's not how you pictured it, So sometimes that's better. Sometimes it's better than you pictured it. For example, I mean, we look at stars who don't work out, who shine very brightly and fade really quick. I always thought it was going to be a sprint, but you know what? It's not. It's a marathon. So I'm still here. I'm 56. So I'm still taking, and I've learned so much. I'm still learning, and now I'm at the phase where I'm trying not to act. The less you generate, that's a very subtle. I think it's a step towards mastery for me. The less acting I can do is better, or the more of getting back to who I really am and accepting that and showing that. So again, it's there for you somewhere. It's a big world. There's always more opportunities. That's the beautiful thing about it. It's not like there's ever been a time where it's just dried up and there were no more auditions. I mean, there was for the strike, which was pretty hard on a lot of people. And you got to diversify your shit, excuse my language. You got to diversify. That's what New York teaches you. That's why being a triple threat was very important for me. That's how I survived.
City of Lies. I mean, how did that even, what was that being a part of such hip hop history?
Yeah.
What was that experience like, sir?
It was kind of crazy because the script was very under wraps. And so I did not get to read the whole script, which you usually do. So I kind of was dropped in. So they just gave me a badge and off I went, And fortunately, it was directed by a very good friend of mine, Brad Furman. Great director. And we've worked together several times. And both huge hip hop fans. And I mean, it was very, he's very respectful to the culture. He loves the culture, and that's all. You always want to be in good hands because, like I said, it's not just about you. It's about the director. You are a tool for him. So if you trust your director, which I do trust him, obviously, that's half the battle. So you're free to do whatever. We collaborate a lot. We have a very great relationship that's lasted a very long time, and we have our almost silent way of communicating. I know what he wants or whatever, and so forth. And I trust that no matter how crazy it is, it's going to come out all right in the end. So that's good. That's the difference, I think. I think one of your questions, what's the difference between working with A-list and say indies or whatever? That is different is trust, because when, I wanted to work with younger, new people because sometimes they have more time for you. Like say if you're working with Michael Mann, which I have a couple of times, who is a genius, doesn't always have the time. So they're very busy people. So, it's a blessing. But I found, I did realize when I moved to LA that you look at any big actor, there's usually a thread that connects them. Say, what would De Niro be without Scorsese? I mean, you have to make relationships, good, solid relationship with good people. That's half of it. Don't go thinking it's just going to be how brilliant you are. No, you still need friends, man. You need friends. So you got to make them.
He inspired me as well as you. Did you get a chance to speak with Mr. Depp off set and learn things from him? On that,
I actually had a good story for Johnny that he did not remember. Yeah, I did. We chatted. Unfortunately, we didn't have any scenes together, but I had to take the moment because who knows when I would see him privately again. Because I had a quick story. Unfortunately, The Crow was a very sad experience and a hard one. So after I finished shooting that and I came back to New York, I was pretty pretty depressed, and I was for the first time thinking maybe this isn't for me. It's the only time I've ever thought maybe this isn't for me because it took such an emotional toll, the whole experience. I was in a dive bar in the Village, feeling sorry for myself. In walks Matt Dillon and Johnny Depp. They just walk in, and I was like, I'm always looking for signs. So I was like, this has got to be one. I'd have to be blind not to see this. And so Johnny went to the bathroom, and Matt Dillon sat next to me, and he's like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm just funny. You guys should walk in," because I was just kind of rethinking my acting career. And he looked at me. He's like, "Huh?" And and I said, and I think he'd heard the news about The Crow, like everybody else had. And he said, "You got to hang in there, kid." And he said, "I've been doing this a very long time. As you know, Matt Dillon has been doing this since the 70s, since he was a kid." And he said, "You think there's stuff I go in on that I don't get, that Johnny gets? He just got here." So we laughed, and Johnny came out and he was like, "What's so funny?" So I'm telling Johnny this story. I don't think he got the whole story, but I'm telling him on the set. And what he said graciously was, "If I had anything to do with you still being here working, then that's good enough for me." I was like, "All right, man." So we hugged it out. I'm not a big hugger, but we hugged it out. So yeah, like I said, you get help along the way. You get signs. And so yeah, he said, "If I had anything to do with you still being on this set right now," I was like, "You did." Somehow, so the whole half the story he wasn't even there. So just the fact that they walked through the door, I was like, this must mean something, so I have lots of little magical things like that. And yeah, Johnny's a top-notch guy, and I'm glad he's still on top. It's amazing.
He's one of the most versatile. That's when I was maybe 6. I seen his R-rated films first before the Pirates films and things like that. And
right.
Before Night Falls was immaculate. Lost in La Mancha is a good one. Blow.
He's a craftsman. That's one of the things I was saying earlier. I mean, look at him. He's a beautiful person. He's a star, damn it. Just look at him. He's a star. He went out of his way. He took a lot of chances that he didn't have to take. Took roles, interesting roles that interested him. I think that's what makes him different, from, say, a James Dean and other matinee idols. He was always willing to take the risk. You have different kinds of actors, like I said. He worked with what he had to get his foot in the door. He did. And, he did 21 Jump Street and so forth. That could have been it, but he kept going, taking, chances with all kinds of weird stuff, like making his own films and so forth. And just the group, who he surrounded himself with. These things are very important, I think. I have a lot of respect for that. I have respect for somebody who could have done whatever he wanted, but still chose to do the harder things, the more interesting to him. He's stayed close to what, in my opinion, to what interests him. Sometimes it will probably be easier just to take the payday. So, and he's got chops. He's an amazing actor. He's not just a pretty boy. So you got to respect that, so, which I do, which is amazing. And I wish I had a scene with him, but oh well, it's not all about me. So, I played my part, and I loved the role I played. It was exactly what I was looking for. Again, to finally be on the right side of the interrogation table, to play an FBI agent has been a long time coming. I jumped at the chance. I couldn't wait. And I love that movie. I think it's a very smart movie. I think it's very economical, and it's fair. And it was very hot, very hot subject for LAPD. Again, that's what I love about Brad. He's not afraid of those things. He went right into it. He did not, he didn't back off, pull punches. Yeah, there's a lot of not, touchy stuff, but 100% respect. He spoke with Biggie's mom often, and I mean, just beautiful. Who takes the time to do these things? You know, I like to surround myself with people who work like that with respect and appreciation. So yeah, it was very great.
Like you said, the script was under wraps. When you were going into the role, did you read the Labyrinth book leading up to acting in
No,
it?
no, I did not have much prep time. I mean, I literally got on set. They gave me an FBI jacket and a badge and a gun. And Brad said, you know, just follow these guys, go through there. I mean, that's how quick it was. Again, this was a role I'd wanted for a very long time, type of role. So I didn't have to do a lot of preparation. I was basically playing my father with a gun. So, you know, you build a character carousel, let's call it that. You know, so this is a person who did not go the gangster route. This is somebody who was disciplined on the right side of the law, which is how I was raised. So it was, you know, easy for me to tap in. So all I had to do was just follow and just freeze. You know, that's it. So it wasn't a whole lot of preparation, and it came out fine. And the actual first scene we shot was this is the girl in the ambulance, and it was in the rain, which I'm not a big fan of. So I remember going to Brad. I was like, "Wouldn't he have an umbrella? Why am I just standing here getting wet?" And Brad was like, "No, no umbrella. It looks great." And I'm like, "Come on, man." So again, this is where the trust comes in. So I trusted him, and he was right. It does look beautiful. So he was totally right. So again, the rain was irritating and uncomfortable, and so I used that because after years of performing, you learn how to use what's around you. You know, it just came out, kept the character very dry and straightforward, if that makes sense.
So something that I would definitely like your knowledge on, sir, is, you know, growing up, just on my experience, and you said the word prepare earlier, is you got to be likable, you got to be prepared. You know,
Yeah.
what could you say to the word likable there? You know, how when you're in theater and you're learning and you're coming up, how do you be likable? Is that just being yourself in a way, always being prepared?
It's
What
just
is the psychology of that?
it's a discipline. The three P's. Don't do anything unless you're prepared. You know, I mean, what was the first thing I asked you? I said, what are the questions? You know what I mean? That's being prepared. And present means I'm not preoccupied with something else. I'm focusing on you. I'm giving you the time of day. That's being present. Present, prompt, and prepared. And what did we say? We're 1 o'clock. We started a little early. That, you know, don't waste people's time. That goes a long way. You know, that's to me being professional. You have to be professional. That's your goal. For example, I was coaching a young actress, and the topic of the union came up, and I said, "Have you joined the union yet?" She's like, I don't know if I want to." I said, I couldn't compute that because that's all I wanted when I was a youngster. All I wanted to was to be the union, because to me that meant legitimacy. I wanted to be legitimate, because in New York you could just do little plays, you can act, but I wanted that card. I wanted to be in the union. I wanted my residuals. I wanted to be bona fide, certified. That was my goal ultimately. I wanted, you know, when you fill out your taxes, I wanted to put actor in occupation. That's what I wanted. That's it. To the extreme point where I never did anything else. I mean, sometimes I did, you know, I mean, I did a little security to pay the bills. I was a messenger, you know. I always stayed away from, I never learned how to pour drinks because I didn't want to get stuck as a bartender, you know. I didn't want to end up being a bartender or a waiter. I never did those things. I said I have to make money from the arts. It has to be. And that's when you start to diversify. I was like, you know what? I have a decent voice. People tell me I have a nice voice. Why not try voiceovers? And I did that. I did print modeling. You know, I ain't no model, but you know, just for my first print job was for Microsoft. It's just like, back in my head basically. And that sustained me for a year. So, you know, I learned to diversify my talents. And it's just using what you got, basically. You
When
can
you're coming up, sir, what is your father's reaction? Like, I knew you would do it. How proud was he?
there was, to be honest, there was a bit back and forth, like I said, that these jobs weren't really existing very strongly in the Caribbean at the time. I mean, the safer route was always one that was hoped for, say a lawyer, blue collar, white collar, not blue collar, yeah, blue collar, white collar. There were doubts. For example, when I quit college, he wasn't very happy about that. So, I was at college and, in my dorm watching TV and I'm seeing my friends on TV. I'm like, why am I paying to act? What am I doing here? They're already working. And fortunately, I already had an agent. My agent was gracious enough to wait for me. They said, we'll wait till you get out, which is unheard of. So I had an agent and I said, I'm ready. I've been doing this since I was 10. I'm ready. I want to jump in. So I left school early and I did that. My dad was not happy about that. He felt it was a big mistake from his perspective. College used to mean a lot more back then. So I don't know if it still means that much these days. But yes. So he was worried. And let me tell you, back in the day, they used to, when the studios had money, I mean, they sent a stretch limo to pick me up for the Crow. I was still living at home. I was 22. So this stretch limo pulls up in front of my house in the Bronx. Again, all the kids across the street who used to tease me, they're like, whoa, what's Larry doing? Whoa, look at him, And I remember I got in the limo and I put down the tinted window and I saw my dad, as the car pulled away, I saw my dad just smile. And that was the smile like, all right, you're doing it. You're all right. You're going to be okay. You made it. It was beautiful. It was one of my sweetest memories of my father. Just that look and kind of like, you did it, you MF, kind of thing. So it was beautiful. Yeah. One of my cherished moments. Yeah. He just waved, and I was like, I'll see you in a couple of months. So that was the beginning. So yeah, always then after that, yes, he became my biggest fan. I mean, crazy, he would try to make me a reel. He would take 2 VHSs and try and edit my first reel together. Because in the beginning, you really just have to sew things together. I mean, I think all I'd done was in America's Most Wanted. I don't know if you remember that show. Not such a great show. So I had that and some theater stuff. He's desperately trying to edit these things together. He's so supportive. Yeah, he's my biggest fan.
One thing I do want to say about Trinidad is they got some beautiful women out there.
Yes, sir.
I have to tell you that. So as you're coming up and doing all these roles, did he? I am very curious to know now. Did he have, when he was watching you back, did he ever say to you, son, I didn't know you had that in you. I didn't know you had that far.
No, not verbally. No, but like I said, when he looked and saw me get in that limo, that's what I got from him. I received that. Yeah. It was like, oh, okay, it is possible. I think it's more, it wasn't directly about me. I think it was in general because he did not, unfortunately, get to his full potential as an artist because he had 3 kids to raise, and that is another reason why I have no children, because I always wanted to put my career first, which I did, which is the sacrifice I made. I'm not sure if it was necessary sacrifice, but I did it. That's how important it was to me, because I know lots of children of very big names. Usually, you're on the road. Somebody is going to miss out. The kids might miss out. I always wanted to be a good parent, so I decided to wait till I was in a place that was good for me.
My uncle passed away last year, and growing up, one of the most impactful films that we spent time watching together, like you said, spending time with your father as a child, was The Lincoln Lawyer. And my Uncle Jim, he always liked the murder mystery shows. He was very meticulous about what he liked.
Okay.
And The Lincoln Lawyer was one of those movies where he liked it, and he liked it a lot. So I have to ask you, you know, what was that experience like? Because that was one of my childhood films, sir.
It was a great experience. Honestly, I'd met Brad Furman. That was the director for that. I'd met Brad Furman previously before that for a very small role in his first film with John Leguizamo. And again, it was a role where I get killed because at some point I was like the go-to guy to get killed. I don't know why. Because, you know, I was a little disappointed. I was like, I want to work with you, but I'm trying to get out of this getting killed thing. And he was like, I understand. He's like, I'll make a deal with you. If you do this for me, I will put you in everything I do from now on. Which, you know, I rolled my eyes because you hear that kind of thing in Hollywood. And to his credit, he kept his word. I've been making movies with this guy forever, and I love it. So I hadn't made a movie in a very long time when that came up, Lincoln Lawyer. And again, you'll notice the character Earl I'm playing is always smiling. There's a reason he's always smiling. The reason is I just did a very simple analogy. You know, we call it parallel when you use something from your life and you put it in a role. For me, I hadn't done a movie in a long time, and you never know if you're ever going to do one again. You really don't know. So this was the first time I was on a movie set in a very long time, and I was very happy and relieved. So that's that smile. So the parallel was Earl should have most likely been in jail thanks to Mickey Haller getting him out, getting him off. So now he's free. He's out. He's got a job, a legit job. He's not a criminal. Earl was filled with appreciation, as was I. It's the same thing. So that's why Earl's always smiling, because he appreciates. So something I've learned is your gratitude can change your attitude. Something my mom would always tell me. I used to roll my eyes, but it's true. It really is true, man. If you have gratitude, you know, that can come out. You know, that's what Earl is all about. He was just happy to not be in jail. He was happy to be on the road. So that's what that. I mean, it's a very powerful, excellent movie, great cast, and of course, getting to co-star with Matthew McConaughey was a big deal. He's a real pro, and just to watch, you know, I learn. You know, I'm like a sponge. I don't ask questions. I just osmosis. I just pick it up. Another thing I learned from Matt. Well, you know, these things are always catered very well. You know, so at lunch we're eating our faces off, having lobster and this that, and his assistant brought him some Tupperware, and I'm thinking, wow, this must be special. What does this big star eat? You know, so he opens the container. It's just carrots and broccoli, man. That's all it is. I was like, that's your lunch? And he goes, yeah, how do you think I keep this going? You know, I was like, yeah, you're right, man. You know, he works out on set. He brings his streamline trailer, which is a comfort place for him. You know, you figure it out. You learn how to stay comfortable and keep that original spark. Remember we were talking about that? That's how he does it. You know, he doesn't have a big like double-decker trailer like some celebrity does. He has, you know, this Airstream back from Texas, I think maybe, which keeps him grounded on set, which is beautiful. You learn these little tricks, and that's why I always have a soundtrack. You know, I make sure to always have my soundtrack. You know, I play my soundtrack in my trailer. That reminds me of where I'm from. Keeps that locked in. You know, you have to stay close to that. These are the things that make you you. That's what we were talking about earlier. He's maintained who he is. You know, off camera. You know, there's paparazzi everywhere. You know, even if we're in a parking lot, there's guys like with long photo, you know, those big lenses. I'm like, how do you deal with all this? He's like, It's part of the job, It's like that simple, Not anger, just it's a part of the job. You want them. If they're not taking pictures of you, you're not a star, It was like, yeah, I guess you're right. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why other celebrities are angry. It's like I don't either. I don't get it. I was like, so that's what I learned from him. Yeah. Very, very laid back. You don't have to be all aggro and extra. Just do your job. That's what you're there for. I mean, he did his job. He put the butts in the seats, as they used to say. Just by saying yes to doing it, he'd already done his job. Because that's star power.
Your father was a huge impact.
Yes.
How big of an impact was your mother in your career?
I think she's a very extrovert, and I am not, nor is my father. I think that's where I get my shine from a bit. She's got quite a passion for life. She's a terminal optimist and very religious, as I said. I think I get a lot of faith from her and joy, which are not things my dad was expressive with. So she's traveled to hundreds of countries. She still does. I like to stay home. She's kind of the other side of me, maybe nature wise. I got. When I get in front of the camera, I can do anything. I can be anything, but just being myself, a little awkward sometimes, honestly. So I think I got that from her and her. She's very, she's always had a lot of faith. I got from her, definitely strength and perspective. I think it's important because the farther we go into the future, the more history becomes. It seems to be disappearing. It's important to remember the journey, how you got where you are. We didn't come out of nowhere. Takes a lot. It takes thousands of couples to have succeeded for us to be sitting here. You go back to your greats, your great greats, and so forth. She's my last link to my family in the Caribbean, basically. So it's very important to ground me, to know what the journey is all about. If that makes sense.
When it's all said and done, and all the work that you put in by being teaching the youth of how to with scripts and acting and everything that you've done up to this point. I mean, when it's all said and done, sir, like, what do you want others to take from it, or in other words, learn from it?
Well, I don't, I mean, I say I'm a coach. I don't teach, because I am very, I don't have patience for people who are not driven. I've learned you can't teach drive. You can't teach that. Either somebody's got it or not. If I give you a book about acting to read and you don't read it, you're not ready. You're not ready for the journey. That's that's why they have auditions, because they can't just let anybody come in. You have to have some talent or drive. So what would I want them to take from, I guess just it's possible. I think, like I said, for me in the beginning, it seemed impossible. I didn't think I would ever get on the other side of the wall. I'd ever be allowed on a set, because if that didn't happen, I would have been the biggest fanboy in the world, because that would have been my only outlet. I mean, again, as a child, I was always, I took my mom's mascara and I made Spock eyebrows. I was Spock for a week. Oh, you asked about my mom. She was very open, didn't commit me. She was like, something's different with this kid. You know what I mean? She picked up on it very early. She said, oh, he's different, a little different. So yeah, I was Spock for a week. I had no emotions for a week. And she was like, yeah, all kids play Star Trek, but not for a solid week with no emotions. I was like, Mom, it's not logical. Dinner's not logical that you would do chicken again. So she's always had a good sense of humor and tried to get me where I needed to be and so forth. Yeah, I mean, you see sparks. For example, I don't want to digress, but I was in the subway the other day. I saw this little kid dancing his ass off, and the mother was like, stop it. I told you to stop doing that. And it broke my heart because, my mom would never have done that. That when you see a spark, you got to nurture it. She was very nurturing. She pushed me towards it. Not in a like a Nickelodeon type business way. As far as you obviously artistic. I'm going to let you do your thing, shine. That kind of thing. I felt so bad for the kid. I almost got up and said something to the mother. I was like, "This kid is a dancer. You got to let him dance." I mean, complete stranger in New York. You mind your business. So I didn't say anything, but I did think it. I did feel it. I said, "This poor kid." We're on the platform. He's doing all kinds of dancing, and I'm sure maybe somebody's teasing him somewhere. This is what I mean. You gotta stick to your guns. Everybody's got to. Many are called, few are chosen. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes it's obvious. This kid has got something.
Something that I want to go back to real quick is
Sure. We're all over the place. Sure.
the reason why I use the word teach was there's got to be some elements in teaching and coaching, correct? Even though if they don't want to listen, the spark, the fact that you said it is still there mentally, maybe.
Right.
I hope it makes sense.
It comes with discipline again. Yes. I used to study martial arts when I was very little. The best compliment I ever got was my Sifu. He said, I was a little kid. He said, "I've never seen a kid with so much focus before. You have a lot of focus." And I always kept that, and I applied it to other disciplines. And yeah, if you see some, I mean, everybody needs nurturing. So yeah, I mean, I can tell in the first 10 minutes of interview. I usually interview people I coach with because I'm not just going to coach anybody. They have to be serious. They have to really want to go the distance. So yeah, I never did finish that story. So this particular person was not interested in joining the union. I'm like, why don't you want to join the union? I mean, you can't work unless you're in the union. It's a catch-22. You can't join the union unless you've worked. And you mean that's in the beginning, that is really hard. So I try to help people get to that point, And if you don't want to get to that point, then you're not serious. If you don't want to be in the union, then you don't want to be a serious actor. That's the only people I have time for. It's people that are serious. It's really great meeting you, man. You look exactly like Brad Furman, by the way. That's why I keep staring at you. So yeah, you should try and connect with him if you can. Tell him I said you're all right.